Welcome back to our morning program. A big hello to Daniela De Leon with Stanley Black& and Decker, tuning in virtually from the Washington, D.C. area. Here to introduce our next segment, Say Yes to Success, Motivation for Your Next Big Opportunity, is our new Vice President of Corporate Engagement and Programs, Alberto Ortega.
Hi.
Who cut the music? I like that music. So yes, as was mentioned earlier, say yes to success, motivation for your next big opportunity. Here with us today, I welcome from the Network of Executive Women, CEO and President Sarah Alter. Round of applause, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. My pleasure. Thank you. All righty. So I have a few pictures that I've brought along. And I'm going to set the stage with a quote. And it's a Mark Twain quote. And what he says is, okay, what are the two most important days in your life? The first is the day you were born, clearly, right? The second is the day you realized why. And so what I'm going to share with you today is my journey to the why. And I'm going to start at the end and then go back to the beginning and lead you there. So hopefully this will work. Okay, it's not a good conference unless you have at least one technical glitch, okay? In my house, it's not a good party unless at least one glass is broken. So here we go. Okay. Not working for me. Let's try here. Yeah, not, back. All right, I'll just do it a little slower. Okay, there we go. All right, so my why is next up. And I am so grateful that, Sid and the HACR team invited me to join you today. And I hope it's more of a conversation and a chat, really, than a presentation. Sid, the very first day, 5 years ago, when I started as the CEO and president for the Network of Executive Women, and we have now renamed to Next Up, and I'll tell you why in just a couple seconds. But an email shows up in my inbox, and it's from Sid. And it's congratulations on your new gig, however I can be of help to you. And he has been the most genuine and legitimate partner through the years. He has truly, partnered with us and our organization, and we love the expertise and thought leadership and focus that he has on your incredible community. And we partner together because we focus on advancing all women in the workplace so that 1 + 1 ends up being a 5. So we just recently renamed to Next Up about a month ago. And we did because when I joined 5 years ago, I would have men come up to me and they'd say, I can't belong. I'm not a woman. I had younger leaders come up to me and say, I'm not an executive. I can't belong. And then the thing that was the knife in my heart was I had women of color saying, you're this exclusive white lady network. So that in itself set the stage for that's not the community I was here to lead, right? That is not my why. My why is to make sure that we are supporting and empowering and advancing all women in the workplace. And so with that, I went about transforming our organization, our strategy. The mission, she stayed the same, right? We were still here to advance all women in the workplace. And we renamed it to Next Up because as women, we have journeys in our lives, right? We have personal journeys, we have professional journeys, and you focus on the here and now, but you also focus on what's next, right? And it's, hey, where can I get? As organizations, right? The most successful of organizations tackle the now by figuring out where they need to be next. And then for allies, it's not about what's next for me, it's about who's next. Who beyond me is next up to have a great new adventure and success in their career. And so Next Up, after 850 names, was what we decided on. And to me, I think it truly brings our mission to life, because we are here to navigate the now and what's next for all women in the workplace. We're here to help bring more allies into the community to support you, and we're here to guide C-suite leaders in providing all women with the right culture and the right infrastructure and environment that sets you up for every equal opportunity and just as long and wide of a career runway as you'd like. So less about next up. Here are some of our incredible partners. Sid and I share many partners alike. And guess what? We are both born out of necessity. Both of our groups are needed. You need to engage with both of our groups because our work is not done. There's still so much more we need to be doing. Here's some of our regions. We operate 22 regions across the United States. They're all, and Canada. They're all run by volunteer leaders. We partner with over 900 companies, and we have over 15,000 members. But let's talk about my journey, and hopefully you'll pick up on some of these lessons that I've learned in these pivot points, both good and bad, and sometimes ugly. Alrighty, so here I am. I'm in first grade. It was picture day. Now, what you don't know is that when I left for school, my hair was down to here. I grabbed a pair of scissors. I went into the bathroom in the school classroom and I cut my hair. Okay, so I clearly should not be a hairstylist. And I sure as heck got into some major trouble by the teacher and then when I went home that night. But it started earlier, and others have echoed it. You know, Deborah was fantastic. The whole panel of women were incredible and inspiring, but be determined. And don't ever let anybody tell you you can't do anything, even if it has repercussions, which I clearly had repercussions that night when I went home. Alrighty, so be the nerd. Okay, another fabulous hairstyle, I know. But be the nerd. And when I say that, it's like embrace that inner geek. Numbers drive everything. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, particularly women, like, oh, I can't do numbers. They're too tough, I don't get them. You can. You simplify, you can, embrace it, don't fear it, just master it. And I'll tell you that nerdiness served me well. I was the managing editor of the newspaper. I was in concert choir. I was in the math club. I was a geek. I was a total geek. And it served me well because now it's anything I do and anything I've ever done in my career journey, it's like, you gotta master the numbers. You need data, you need facts to drive your business decisions. So don't fear it, own it, daunt it. Right? You can do it. And what I've learned to do is just simplify it. Don't keep it complex. No one understands anything complex. So from high school, after being a complete straight A geek, I wanted to go to college like most everybody else. And it's funny, I've heard a very similar story. I applied to a state school, couldn't get enough money to go. And our family, that if you wanted to go to college, you had to fund it. There was no money to pay for college. My dad had gone to a trade school. My mom had gone to college. And we later learned at her funeral, my sister brought a bunch of, memorabilia in, and her college report card was there. And my kids were looking at it, and they're like, Grandma got D's and F's in college. And, so college wasn't really in our repertoire. But I applied, couldn't find enough money, so I went to a community college. I worked 3 jobs at night, went to community college during the day, and then I later applied to another institution, Northwestern, in our neighborhood, and through that, I thankfully got a full ride scholarship, and so I was able to make that happen. But I remember my friends all heading off to college, and I was stuck at home working 3 jobs and going to community college. That shaped who I am today, and I'm grateful for that. So here I am. Not only did I get a fantastic degree and meet incredible new people, but I met my husband. And so he and I are college sweethearts. We've now been together, I was counting this up, 34 years. And I'm grateful to all that I experienced at Northwestern, but most importantly, I met my best friend and true partner. From there, I took a very interesting job. I got a degree in economics, and I had no clue what I wanted to do. But what I did do, and what I recommend for those that are fresh out of college, is find a company that has a very structured and comprehensive training program. So you can kind of get to know this, try this, dabble here. And I went to this company, and it no longer exists, but it was called American President Lines, and it was an international shipping company. And they did trans-Pacific export and import, in and out of Asia. And as part of that training program, you had to start either in operations or sales. And my husband was still in Chicago. I wanted to be with him. I'm a cradle robber. He's 3 years younger. So he was still in school, and so I'm like, okay, I want to stay in Chicago. The only job there, truck dispatcher. So my first job out of college, imagine going home to your parents and telling them that you're going to be a truck dispatcher after you've spent how much money. But I'll tell you what, another experience that shaped who I am today. Because, all 5'2" of me had to go in and boss around truck drivers. I learned every conjugation of an F-bomb, I'll tell you. I did. I won't use them today, Sid, I promise. But I was in the middle of a strike at one point. Like, I had to drive in, and I had like this little red, I don't remember what car it was, but it was like a cute girl car driving in and out of the strike and the picketers. But it shaped who I am. And I eventually ended up in a sales job, and I sold for this company for over 7 years, and that was my calling, and that's why I put this up. You have to know how to sell. The advice I give early in your career and in your life, you have to learn how to serve. So wait tables, bus tables. I bussed tables at college, a 5-star restaurant. You have to know the value of service, and the only way you can is if you do it. Like, you sling those dishes into the Hobie in the back kitchen, which I also did at the sorority so I could live there free. But serving and selling. Because even if you're not in a sales job, you're selling yourself, an idea, a concept. So you've got to get comfortable with numbers, and you got to get comfortable with selling. And sometimes you just have to step out and say, okay, how do I get that experience? Our organization, for example, in the regions, you can sell corporate sponsorships. So we have a ton of members who they may be in an HR role, and they'll come and they'll sell sponsorships just so they can figure out how to sell. But selling is key, so find that experience. So from there, my husband, I chased him. He finally proposed after 8 years. I chased him out to Boston, and he went to Harvard Business School, and I opened up a sales office for our company. And I sat there, and I watched him having the time of his life. Like, he was either at the gym, or he was playing, and I kid you not, Nintendo hockey, like with his buddies. And yes, he was learning, and he was meeting a whole bunch of great new people from across the world. But I'm like, I can do this. If he can do this, I can do this. And this is this girl who started in a community college, right? So I quietly applied because in case I didn't get in, didn't want to be embarrassed. And so as a part of the interview, or actually the application and admission process, at that time, if you were a questionable candidate, we knew this, you got interviewed. And so I got called in, and they're like, thank you for being here. And I'm just like, I am so charged right now. I'm going to convince them this is why you're going to let me in, and I'm just going to rule this school. And I start to talk, and they're like, whoa, wait a minute. We just want to let you know that you're the only female truck dispatcher that has ever applied to our school, and we wanted to meet you. So thankfully, I got in. But again, it ended up, it was this experience where, and I am going to drop a curse here. Sorry, Sid. I was scared shitless, right? Like, I walked into this, and I was scared shitless. But like we all said, if your dreams don't scare you, they're just not big enough. And it changed, yet again, changed who I am, and it has helped define me and strengthen me. All right, so I'm going to keep cruising along. So after business school, I had a whole ton of debt. So my undergrad debt, my business school debt, my husband's, his education had been paid by his family. I always joke with him that he married me for my debt. That was like the best part of me. Maybe the most sexy was my fiscal leverage, But I went to A.T. Kearney because guess what? A.T. Kearney said, oh, I'll pay off all your debt. So like everybody else at that point in time, you either went to what was Arthur Andersen at that point, now Accenture, you went into investment banking, or you went into consulting. So I went to A.T. Kearney, and I was so blessed. They sent me over to Hong Kong. I got to work in Asia, and it was just a fabulous, fabulous learning experience. I hated it. I mean, I loved being over in Asia, but it was not my cup of tea, as my mom would say. And for those who are consultants, I love you. For those who are lawyers, I love you. Those are two things that I'm just not really good at. And as we all know, when you're not always good at something, you don't always enjoy it, nor do you end up being successful in it. So I lasted just shy of the 2 years that I had to commit for them to pay back my debt. But where I went was Staples. So I moved then from Hong Kong, and I moved over to London. And so my husband and I were over in London. And the thing that I love, and this is another one of my key takeaways, is find that company that has that nice long and wide runway. And they're willing to place bets on you. So they're willing to say, you know, for example, this was, I'm going to date myself, 1998, and the World Wide Web was just being developed, and they're like, Sarah, you need to go like build this thing. You know, they called it this thing. They took a bet on me, and I went into that meeting with my boss, and I said, I know nothing about this. And he said, that's okay, you're bright, and you don't want to screw it up, you'll figure it out. And so find that company that is willing to do that, worth its weight in gold. While I was over there, I had my first. I had 2 more beyond Emma. And as you can see, we're very much a blended family. My husband grew up Jewish. I grew up Lutheran. Our nanny, who we had for 20 years, was Muslim. And she was from Trinidad. And we celebrated every holiday under the sun, and we were always a fun house because of it. And I think that, to me, really built the foundation for my kids as well, and why it is my passion and my why, is that it is all about diversity. It is all about equity, inclusion, and belonging. And that's what you find in our family. You know, that is the foundation of our family and who we are, and that is the foundation of all that I do at Next Up. So then from London, I moved back after we had Emma, and I had been asked to join this acquisition that Staples had just made called Quill, a 50-year-old company, office supply, catalog, and call center at that point in time. And this was where, like I said, in '98, I got asked to build that World Wide Web thing. Again, another pivotal moment in my career because I didn't know what I was doing, so I found people who knew what I didn't know. I found people who were smarter than me. And that was a lifelong lesson. And you'll hear me say it time and time again, but the humble leader is the smart leader, because the humble leader surrounds themselves with people who know more than they do. They're not afraid of that. They love that. And that also means diverse perspectives too, right? So I don't want somebody who always says, spot on, Sarah. You know, it's like, I want people to be like, I don't know, I think there's a different side to that. But this job helped challenge me, and it helped I had always been afraid of technology. It helped me tackle technology. Like, now I knew that technology would be driving everything in business, and I had to be comfortable with it. So from there, I then said, hey, I don't want to be a one-trick pony. I was at APL for 8 years. I was a consultant for 2, and then I was at Staples for 10. And I was hitting the ceiling. Like, I was the only female leader in our executive team at Quill, and we were in Chicago, and Boston headquarters were in Framingham, Mass, and I couldn't move. And so I started looking. And I went to and found Discover Financial Services. And so I went there, and this incredible woman hired me. And I said, don't make me be a one-trick pony. Like, I don't want to just be the digital marketer for the rest of my career. And so she said, no problem. Come in, scrap, rebuild my whole strategy and my whole platform, and then I promise you I'll put you into a P&L role. And we hear everybody talk about that, right? You've got to own a P&L, or at least one line item on a P&L. And thankfully, that happened at Discover. But what also happened at Discover, and I was telling this story, I don't know if Edison's here. Okay, we were talking about this earlier. I had an incredible boss. He and I were night and day. We were so different, but we loved each other. And he was the boss that I would use an F-bomb with, right? Like he and I had a great relationship. He moved on, I applied for his job, I didn't get it. And a gentleman came in, and he and I were very, very different, but we were oil and water. We didn't embrace each other, we repelled each other. And in my review that year, I got told that I was too motherly, that I was too nice, that he'd never met another executive that was anything like me, so don't expect to ever be an executive. I wore too bright of colors. So I'm rocking this purple lipstick and I don't care, right? I had to find a culture where I could be who I am. And I was never gonna stop being nice. So I quit. And thank God my husband allowed me to, and we could still pay our bills. So I lasted 6 months. I went home and I said, I'm gonna be a stay-at-home mom, and my kids and I are gonna hang, and this is gonna be blissful. And yeah, it lasted 6 months. My kids sat me down at the kitchen table. I remember it. They said, you're fired. And I said, what? And they're like, you're fired. They're like, you screw up the carpools. You don't cook. Just go back to work. So I did, and I've lied, and I promised everybody I'd stay on time, and it's at 0. So I'm gonna wrap this up very quickly. So, big mistake. I chased a title. I'd always wanted to be a chief marketing officer. General Growth Properties, at this point in time, they're now owned by Brookfield Properties. Shopping mall REIT. They own like the top couple hundred shopping malls, A-grade shopping malls in the United States. And at that time, remember what the headlines were saying in the newspaper? It was in, 2010-ish recession. What were dying? The malls. The malls were dying. So I was gonna go in and be chief marketing officer for the malls that were dying. I got my title. 2 years later, flash forward, they didn't need a marketer. They had an $85 million bottom line gap. What they needed to do was to fire their CMO, get rid of her budget, and lay off her entire 120-person team to fill that $85 million gap, and that's what they did. So I got fired. But you know what? Things happen for a reason. It was right. I was not meant to be there. They didn't need that role, and did not click with that culture at all. So, got laid off. Some things you just can't control, but then what you do is you try and find that next adventure, right? You pick yourself up, you regain your confidence. That's where your network comes into play. Your friends, your family, they boost you up, and you find your next why. And you know, it was worth every painful step getting there, but that's what led me to New, which now has led us to Next Up. And so I'm so honored to be here today, and just in awe and humbled by all of you incredible female leaders, because you know what? Tackle the now and tackle that next up, right? There's so much more you can accomplish and so much more you can do. And I thank you for investing in yourselves and investing in this program with Sid's team, because it will be inspirational and it will be life-changing. So thank you for hearing me today.
And we have time for one question from the virtual audience.
Sure.
How can someone who is introverted build the skills to be a great seller?
You know, my husband teaches entrepreneurial selling at the University of Chicago, the Booth Business School. And in his class, he says that sometimes the most successful of sales reps are the most introverted, because they're the best listeners. The best sales rep doesn't talk, right? Like, you walk into a conversation, you walk into that sales pitch, and you try and create that connection. You try and identify, what are they looking to buy? You know, what do they need? It's not about selling what you have, it's about asking the right questions, it's about listening and then connecting what you have to offer with what they need or what they want to buy. So if you're introverted, I can appreciate sometimes it's a little bit more challenging to do the cold call or to jump right in and, you know, insert yourself in a conversation. You have to get past that because you've got to be tenacious, but don't feel like you have to fill the void or the space with your voice. Think about what questions you need to strategically be answering and listen, and then connect the dots. Any other questions? I know I ran over, so I will exit stage left and on to the next.